Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review. Alright, so today from Hasbro, in their Marvel Legends series, we are featuring the popular X-Men, New Mutants, X-Force character, Cable. Okay, so this belongs to the Build-A-Figure Zabu wave. I got this for $24.99 at my local Toys R Us. And you heard that correctly, Toys R Us. So I live in the United States in the Chicagoland area. And one of my local malls actually has a Toys R Us located in the basement of their Macy's anchor store. And the Toys R Us is surprisingly a lot larger than your average pop-up store. And they actually get new figures in stock. And it's kind of like a secret because I don't think a lot of the local collectors even know about it. So I'm kind of at an advantage because, whenever I've gone there, they've always had plentiful stock of the newer figures. So I don't have to always worry about running down to Target to get them. Cable here, it's a fantastic design. And I have a feeling there are a lot of people out there, video gamers especially, who are very fond of this version of the character, especially if you're really big into the Capcom fighting game Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which Cable appears in. Great looking figure. You get extra pair of hands, and these look like they're trigger finger holding hands. He has a set of weapons right here, 2 pistols, I believe. You have Zabu's leg. Nice character artwork on the side. I want to say this is done by artist Chris Bacalo, if I'm saying his name correctly. And we have Cable here. Cable travels back through time from a dystopian future to help the X-Men as an enhanced telekinetic mutant. He's the son of Madeline Pryor and Scott Summers. He's been leader of the New Mutants, of X-Force. He's been a member of the X-Men. And, popular time-traveling character. Other figures in the wave include Superior Iron Man. We have Black Winter, Wolfsbane, Kazar. We have the Red Widow, Icarus, which I've reviewed, and we're looking at Cable right now. Alright, so we have the Zabu Build-A-Figure piece right here, and as you can see, I've already started building the crazy Zabu figure. Zabu is Kazar's pet saber-toothed tiger, and I gotta assemble this as I get the new pieces because I don't want to accidentally put the wrong leg, in the wrong place. And it looks like Cable is piece number 6, which is the other rear leg. So let's attach that now. It's kind of a tight fit. Doesn't want to go in. There we go. So yeah, I'm looking forward to completing this Build-A-Figure, which looks cool. Alright, so as for Cable himself, like I said, I think for some fans out there, this is the costume that this might be their definitive Cable, especially if you're a video gamer. And he does not want to focus. Why doesn't he want to focus? There you go. Excellent looking costume. It's kind of like it's almost like a callback to Cyclops' X-Men 92 costume, especially with the badge over the breast, and then he kind of has these straps. Instead, he has 2 badges, 2 straps. And there's actually, in the comic book, there's a costume of Cable's that's very similar to this. And it was done, I think, in the early 2000s when Chris Claremont returned back to the book. Back then, Cable, he kind of gave up on using firearms as his weapons, and he was relying more on his telekinesis. And he kind of carried around this spear. And the costume looked very much like the one I'm holding in my hand. But during this time period, Cyclops was, quote-unquote dead. And to keep his father's, in his heart and in his memory, he kind of wore Cyclops' visor as a necklace around his neck. So this costume kind of reminds me of that version of Cable also. He has two hands here. He has a fist, and then he has this kind of like knurled hand here, which it looks all right. I kind of would have appreciated more if maybe the fingers were kind of splayed out, so maybe kind of gives him the appearance of him using his telekinesis powers. And speaking of his telekinesis powers, he has his flashing, glowing eye right there. Where if you're unfamiliar with the character, you might not really understand what this is supposed to represent. But it's kind of creating like a plasma-like effect whenever his eye kind of glows and flashes. His hair is nicely done. He has the scar over the one eye. He kind of has that haircut that he had in the early 2000s, and also what you kind of see in Marvel vs. Capcom. He has the cybernetic arm, which we see right there. And the armor plating on it, it's nicely done. It's not even though it's the metal bands, they kind of like break it up enough where it takes on much more of a textured, layered appearance. The belt buckle's nice. Much like his father, he kind of has the straps on the legs, but this one has pouches. And I believe that the thigh cut is cleverly hidden. So even though there's a thigh cut there, the strap and the pouches, kind of cover it up, so it's a much cleaner look. My only complaint with the figure so far is that the shade of blue, it's a little bit too light gray. I'd prefer something with a little bit more punch. Maybe a slightly darker shade of blue, but it's still very well done. And I'm going to swap out his hands because this is Cable, and whenever I think of Cable, I always think of Cable carrying around his big guns and rifles. And when you remove the hands, just be careful because his wrist straps do come off. So just a word of caution, you don't want to accidentally lose these when you're pulling the hands off. And let's take a look at his weapons. Now, traditionally, Cable's known to carry around these gigantic, huge, cannon-like firearms. So these are a little bit a step down from what he normally carries. We have one piece here, which kind of looks like a weird, futuristic revolver/shotgun. And it's a little bit warped from sitting in the plastic tray. It's not completely straight. And then we have this other weapon, kind of resembles like a double barrel, almost like a revolver, shotgun kind of deal. Again, it's much smaller than the weaponry that Cable's usually known for. It would have been nice if this was like those older Toy Biz figures where they had the giant pouches, like maybe on the back or on the leg where you could like store the weapons. I always get a kick out of that. It kind of annoys me when characters who carry weaponry don't have any place on their body to store them. But I do like the fact that he comes with two gun-wielding hands, and then he has the trigger fingers, so I could put the weapons in place and have them look awesome. This is Cable. My favorite version of Cable is I think X-Force #1 Cable, where he has those giant sphere-like shoulder pads, and it looks ridiculous. One of my favorite Cable action figures is actually the Diamond Marvel Select version of Cable, and I'm going to review that figure in the near future. I have that in hand, and it's such a beautiful figure. But this one is really well done, really well crafted. The Marvel Legend figures we get nowadays, it's such a huge upgrade from the figures we got, maybe as recently as 5 years ago. Within a 5-year period of time, we've seen such improvements in terms of the paint application, the sculpting, overall much cleaner appearances, especially with the pinless designs. Cable's articulation, we have movement in the head. He looks down, which is awesome. Does he look up? He looks up really, really high, which is nice. It's kind of disappointing because with some figures that are flyers, they can't even tilt their head up, but for Cable he could, which is awesome. You could pose him shooting upward, you could pose him shooting downward. He has movement in his arms. There is no butterfly joint, which for me is a sigh of relief. I'm not a big fan of butterfly joints. They're always kind of like stuck and they don't move, or they're broken. A lot of nice articulation in the arms. Unfortunately, this arm here, the pins are exposed, but that's not a deal breaker for me. He does have a abdomen cut right there, so he could arch forward about there. He could arch back. And it's nice too because, as you can see, the way the straps are engineered, they kind of wrap underneath the muscles. So it's a very clean look when you move the figure up and down like that. He swivels at the waist, legs kick up. Like I talked about at the beginning of the video, he has a thigh cut hidden underneath the or at least it's above the strap and pouches. Clean design for the knees, which are pinless and double jointed. A boot cut, allowing for swivel and articulated ankles. In terms of the character's height, I'm guessing Cable's probably going to stand in at maybe 6 3/4 or close to 7 inches. And he's actually a little bit above 7 inches tall. Height-wise, here he is next to Wolverine. Marvel Legends X-Men Vulcan. And just for the hell of it, what we have here is a much older Toy Biz Cable action figure. This is from the Legendary Riders series of Marvel Legends that Toy Biz produced way, way, way back in the day. And I bought this figure used. This figure came out, I think, back in 2004. So you're looking at a figure that's 20 years old. It's inspired by the same costume. It's missing the knee pads because I cut the knee pads off and threw it onto another figure. I bought this figure secondhand, and it was kind of disappointing because it was an action figure that I was really excited for, but it had so many quality control issues. There's paints where there shouldn't be. The butterfly joint on one end was stuck. On the other end, it was broken. But I mean, like I said, this was a used figure, but at the time, this joint here wouldn't move at all. This one, I want to say the previous owner didn't break it. It might have been me because I think I broke it when I tried to force it to move because it was stuck. And then I just kind of like yanked it. And when I did, I think I broke the peg. But this is essentially the same costume, just, different execution altogether. You can kind of see the difference in sculpting and engineering, 20 years ago versus now. There's stuff about this figure I do like. I love the extra pouches on the straps. I do appreciate the effort put into the idea of detailing the straps, but the execution is just kind of poor. It's a little bit sloppy. But it was the only way to bring out all these details because all the pouches have covers over them. They all have buttons and rivets and trim. But, it just wasn't done as well as it could have been. This figure also, he has kind of like, he's a muscular figure, and this isn't necessarily vascularity. All this vein work here is more so to indicate that he's suffering from the legacy virus or the technovirus. Because there's some mutants, they're infected with a techno-organic virus that Cable, he's constantly fighting throughout his entire life. He has to use his telekinesis powers to keep the virus in check, because if he doesn't, he'll become sick. And that kind of explains why he has the cybernetic arm and the bionic eye. And I think back here was the storage for his rifle on the older figure. I think the older figure had like a tab, and you'd be able to slide the rifle onto his back right there. But for a 20-year-old figure, it doesn't really hold up the test of time. But for me, I have a fondness for it just because I was collecting Marvel Legends during the early 2000s. I do want to hunt down this figure mint in box if I could find it, because I do think it still has a place in my collection. I love the older Toy Biz figures. I mean, the new stuff is much more superior, don't get me wrong, but there's a weird charm about these older figures that I'm always just drawn to. So yeah, 2 different generations of Cable. I do like this one's haircut a little bit more. I do kind of like the flat top look as opposed to like the tussled skater look. All right, so let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. All right, later.